Good morning, everybody. Welcome to ISE 2017 in Amsterdam. We're here. It's day 4, and who would have believed a couple of years ago we'd be saying day 4 of ISE. We're with NEC Display Solutions in Hall 5 on stand R24. Very delighted. We've kept some of the best to last. We have Gary Kayye from rAVepubs to help us sum up the week.
Thank you.
Everybody knows Gary and his gang of young people running around the show doing all the interviews. So Gary, we obviously got you on last. We wanted to do, what's your thoughts of the show?
Great show. There's no question they're going to break attendance records. I mean, I think you could be a first-time attendee and think this is the biggest show you've been to. It's phenomenal. A lot of new technology, a lot of new products, exciting environment, and it shows well for the future of our industry.
So what's the one thing that you've seen this week that's really blown your mind?
I think technologically, I would say the development of LED in general. I wouldn't say that one stands out. You could possibly say the Sony, as your previous guest said, the Cletus display would stand out, but I think LED in general is just I mean, look at this. I mean, what's behind us here? It's just amazing how fast that technology has developed and matured and how available it is. Unlike any other technology in the past, it's the most available new technology I've ever seen.
How do you manage to cover the whole show? How many people do you bring across to a show like this?
I mean, 15 people, and just when you go to a 4-day show, it actually makes it easier on us because it gives us an extra day. So actually, we haven't had to grow the staff since they went to a larger show, simply because we actually have an entire new day. And quite honestly, we love the last day because everyone is not as busy, and so they are more welcoming of the press coverage.
What sort of shows do you do in a year? You don't cover CES, I don't think. So is Infocom the first show of the year?
We do cover CES, but not the way we cover, not with our Rave Now service. Rave Now service is our what we brand as our live service. And we cover about 5 or 6 shows a year, depending on the year, with that live service, including the big shows you're familiar with, Infocom, CEDIA, and of course ISE, the Digital Signage Expo, and we cover some other regional shows.
So you guys will be at Infocom in Orlando this year. Do you have a preference, Las Vegas, Orlando, or you're happy with either?
I like the idea of switching back and forth, and I like we've become familiar with both locations, and to us the location's not important because we're inside the entire time. So it doesn't matter what the weather is, doesn't matter what's going on outside, we're stuck inside either way, and we know the system really well in both locations. The show in general is a great show, and I think it's a great, the partnership that exists for ISE is thanks to Infocom in part.
Yeah, there seems to be no animosity. I mean, Infocom are a co-owner of this show, but there's no animosity. They love the whole idea that they get 70,000 people here, another 30, 40,000 in the US, and what they're looking at is a larger number of well over 100,000 people. So
right. They have nothing to complain about, do they?
Nothing at all. So you cover lots of other shows. This show in particular, have you got a place where you call home? Is there a hall or somewhere where we can find you?
Yeah, we actually are lucky to be in a meeting room because what we do is behind the scenes. Nobody would really care about how we do it behind the scenes. So we're in a meeting room, which is nice because we sort of have our own little environment, our own little ecosystem to put everything together. But remember that what we're doing behind the scenes is, we've already uploaded a little over 1,200 videos in the last 3 days. And to do that, 720p resolution videos, it requires a lot of bandwidth and a lot of control over the back end of our system because when our videos are uploaded, they're put on Facebook, on our website, and YouTube simultaneously. And to get all that to work requires some coordination. So being out in the middle of a show floor doing that is not as fun or as awesome as being inside of a meeting room, kind of an enclosed space. But we're out on the show floor during the show hours.
Yeah, everybody can see you out with your T-shirts and things, which is great, and the cameras. We've had a couple of analysts on the show who've talked about not only LED, but they've said that huddle rooms and workspace collaboration is one of the things. What have you seen that you've really liked in that space?
So I would say there's a few things that are worth talking about. First off, the sort of explosion of what we call the collaboration board market is what we've termed it, which is the interactive boards that also allow you to connect wirelessly. There's one here in this booth, right here, NEC, the Infinity board, which is phenomenal. I mean, the great thing about the Infinity board is it's universal in the sense that it's using a standard that everyone's familiar with, Windows 10, and they've got great partners. They partnered with Sennheiser for audio, Huddly with the camera technology, Flat Frog for the touch technology. It's a great product. If you haven't seen it, if you're not here at the show, you should go online and check out the Infinity board. Of course, Cisco with their Spark board, that's hugely popular because if you've bought into the Cisco ecosystem, then it makes sense for you to get that board, right? Because then it drops right into that ecosystem. But there's about 20 companies that launched boards at this show, and what's interesting about that is a couple of people said to me, aren't there too many people in that industry? But if you talk to the analysts, they'll tell you that industry is somewhere between 1.4 and 1.7 billion dollars next year. So if I were a company and I had 10% of that, I'd be perfectly fine with that small market share. So that's something to talk about. Of course, the explosion of LEDs, the huddle room market. We're rapidly moving to a market where we're going to be able to do a lot more wireless and a lot more with direct view display, less reliance on projection display in small huddle room environments, and that's going to be more of a plug and play kind of thing, right? Because we certainly have had the Barco click share, but now you've got some other companies, Vivitech with their new product as well. The Novo Enterprise is very impressive. They've had the Novo Pro. You've got Kramer's got a product called ViaWare, which is a software-based system. And you've got, again, another dozen or so companies out there that have wireless connectivity systems. So that's something you have to look out for as well that's impressive. And then, of course, audio-wise, the fact that we now have a standard, there's no question, everything's going Dante in audio. And the next step to that is video. What's going to be the video standard for video over the network? And we're seeing that sort of emerge here at ISE.
There were some things, I'm glad you mentioned video. I was going to talk about the SDVOE Alliance, and there's some competing standards, is there not?
Yes, there are. I mean, SDVOE Alliance is actually, it appears to be a real alliance, and I hope that it is. Of course, it's owned by or started by Aptivision, which is a company that has a reference chip design. So they have a vested interest in seeing that successful because they are a company that builds a reference chip design for sending video across the network, and it's a great technology. It's one of the best video over IP technology that we've seen out there, but there are competing standards out there, right? I mean, you've got the system that AMX has had for a few years now after buying SVSI. There's the system that Crestron launched here, which is N2Pix. They're using the N2Pix system, which is competitive to the Aptivision technology. And then there's a few others that are here as well. I think that we're not going to see, it's not like the integrators who are watching this need to run out and adopt the system. They should look at what their customers need and then evaluate all that's out there, because all of them are sort of, there's different flavors. It's not like there's one type. If you're doing just video and you need to run it across the network, there are some cheap, inexpensive ways of doing that, but of course, if you're going to run your entire AV system, you're going to need something more complicated. You're going to need at least a 10 gig switch, better off with a 20 gig switch. So, but this is an emerging market, right? I mean, you recognize that. I mean, there's a lot of hype around it, but it's emerging, so it's going to be a few years before it's really going to mature.
One of the things that we've noticed, I'm sure you may well have done as well, and the exhibitors you've spoken to, is the number of end users. We keep talking about integrators, but there seems to be hundreds and hundreds of end users here coming to see the show. Have the people you spoke to on the stand said a similar thing? Yes,
no question. In fact, I was in a stand earlier this morning that was their biggest satisfaction point, was the fact that they felt like they had a really good number of quality end users, right? There are a lot of end users here. I don't know what the number is, but I'm going to guess somewhere in the range of 10 to 15,000 end users here. But the interesting thing is they're quality end users. They're actual people that are making decisions and understand the technology, understand that you don't just hook the stuff on the network and it's just going to work. There's a little bit more to it than that. And they have an appreciation for the fact that a company like NEC, for example, has put in a lot of money in R&D to develop what they've developed, and that this is not the same as everything else you see in the LED room. There's a whole hall, literally, a whole hall of these displays. And I guess my rule of thumb would be to stick with the branded companies right now, because you know that they've put in some work into the R&D of this, because not all LEDs are alike. Right. And so, but I think end users will appreciate that, and I think that the show in general, I can't imagine there's any, certainly some people don't want to be here 4 days, right? It's just more work, but I think in general, I'm hearing very few complaints at all.
So, I mean, you've agreed that day 4 is an improvement. Is there anything else that you could suggest to the organizers on how to improve the show?
My suggestion would be and take it with a grain of salt because it's just me, but my suggestion would be hard to pull off, and that is, segmenting the show into sections so that you could help people sort of focus themselves. And they've done that a little bit, right? They have the digital signage hall, they have the home AV pavilion stuff, they've got the audio section, right? It'd be nice to see them do a little bit more, but I see the problem with that. Here we're sitting in the NEC booth. I mean, this company does a little bit of everything, right? I mean, they literally are coming, and there's a few companies like that do, where are you going to put them, right? I mean, the leading company in digital signage right now, display-wise, is probably NEC, and they're not in the digital signage hall because they've got their own display here, and you can't expect them to buy another booth. You know, I leave the expertise up to people who are experts. They are experts at running the show. Mike Blackman and his crew have done a phenomenal job. What am I to say that they can make any improvements? I enjoy the experience here, and of course, Amsterdam is a great host, and we love being here.
Gary Kayye, I'll probably see you in Orlando. Thank you very much indeed.